Hello, everybody. This is Gerald Salenti, and it's January 22nd, 2025. And we have with us again Judge Andrew Napolitano, a real man of men, someone that, as I say, knows the Constitution, the Bill of Rights like nobody else. And we talk about it each week, just basically on Judging Freedom. And yeah, Judging Freedom is his show on Salenti and the Judge. And you got to go to Judging Freedom because the guests that he has on are spectacular. Scott Ritter, Max Blumenthal, Colonel Douglas McGregor, Phil Giraldi, one after another, speaking about issues and facts that you don't get from the mainstream media. Judge, thanks for being here today.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be with you, my dear friend.
You know, Judge, you have an article coming out. It's going to be out tomorrow. And the headline is TikTok and the freedom of speech. And it begins with Congress shall make no law abridging the freedom of speech or press, First Amendment of the Constitution.
Yeah, so does no law really mean no law? If it does, then all these laws that interfere with speech, even defamation, even treason laws, are unconstitutional. If no law doesn't mean no law, well, then what the hell does it mean? It means whatever the courts want it to mean. And that's the defect in the system. The column that you're kind enough to refer to talks about the Pentagon Papers case, which was the high watermark for free speech in the United States, where the Supreme Court allowed the Washington Post and the New York Times to publish stolen state secrets because the public had the right to know and the press had the right to reveal them. Along comes the congressional ban on TikTok. The government doesn't like people using TikTok because it's a rival with the government's own interference with our free speech. And so it bans TikTok, and the court couldn't care less about the free speech aspects. Can the Congress tell you what book to read, how to express yourself, what venue to use when you express yourself? Of course not, but that's what it's done with TikTok. Trump courageously has put a stay on the ban for 75 or 90 days in the hope of working something out. But had he not done that, now I know you have your own unique problem with TikTok, which is not the freedom of speech because it doesn't involve the government. It involves them and their hatred for the opinions that you and people like you and I have. But the fact that the Congress would decide that you cannot use a venue for gathering information and communicating your ideas directly violates the First Amendment.
You know, what happened with me on TikTok, they took me off. I did a clip on my podcast where I said that, Trump says he's going to stop the Ukraine war in 24 hours. He said, and then he said after he was elected that the war would end even before he got inaugurated. And of course he didn't. So I said that, as I see it, Ukraine is going to do everything they can to ramp up this war, like a false flag event.
Right.
Something like blowing up a nuclear power plant. That's all I said. Here's the clip. I believe there's going to be a false flag event, like they bombed a nuclear power plant or something that's going to get NATO and the United States back in this war with Ukraine, because Ukraine's not going to back out of this. Because the deal is going to be this. Russia's going to keep what they got. They took Crimea, they had voted out, and the other land, 20% that they gained since the war began on February 24th, 2022. They're not going to give back that land. And that's it. So that's all I said. And they permanently banned me for saying that. That's it. That's all I said. The clip is right there.
Is there recourse to the ban? Is there an appeal?
It's hard to find anything, as we keep going on, and but I'm just saying that, what did I say? What did I do wrong? I have an opinion that considering that Ukraine is going to lose, which we said from the beginning before the war started, there's no way in the world they're going to beat the Russians. If Napoleon couldn't beat them and left Poland with 420,000 troops and came back with 10,000, if Hitler killed over 25 million Russians in Operation Barbarossa, and they were the first ones to beat the Germans, what makes you think that Ukraine's going to be able to beat them? So
pretty sound and historically accurate logic.
So I said, because of that, they're going to ramp up this thing to keep it going. And now, of course, you heard even this guy who was against it, that Rubio, when he was first supporting the Ukraine war, now he's saying we should get out of there. So I believe Ukraine's going to ramp this thing up, a false flag event that will unite people again. Just like 9/11, 90% of Americans believed the crap spewing out of little Georgie Bush's mouth, we're going to get that guy Osama bin Laden dead or alive. So I think there's going to be something that's going to drag us back into it. That's all I said. And I got I got blacklisted.
I don't know what's going to happen with Ukraine. There's no way that they can defeat the Russians. No. If you listen to this character, Sebastian Gorka, who's one of Trump's senior foreign policy advisors, he's been threatening Putin, although recently he's been rather silent about it. I don't know that Rubio doesn't strike me as the Secretary of State type. Nevertheless, is the Secretary of State as we speak. I don't know what he's going to do. So I don't know where any of this is going to go. Trump said he'd end the war in 24 hours. Then he said it'll be over before he's president. Then he said it would take him 6 months. Then he appointed this general Kellogg. Then Kellogg made threats to Putin. Then they'd silenced Kellogg. Then Gorka made threats to Putin. Then they silenced Gorka. So I don't know where any of this is going to go.
Now that Kellogg said 100 days. But again, think about this. You're running for president. You say, I'm going to end this within 24 hours, and you didn't. How come you're not being condemned for lying?
Right. Good point.
And then you said it would be over before you got inaugurated, and it's still going on. And now you're saying 6 months. Where's the outrage?
Right.
Here's something that Trump did say on his speech, his acceptance speech, about free speech. After years and years of illegal and unconstitutional federal efforts to restrict free expression, I will also sign an executive order to immediately stop all government censorship and bring back free speech to America.
I think he's talking about the efforts by the Department of Homeland Security to pressure big tech to repress speech that the government hates and to use their algorithms to advance speech that the government likes. If he gets the government out of that business, it'll be a remarkable victory for free speech. I don't know if he's going to succeed in doing that because it's actually started under his first term. Excuse me, he began this. But if that's what he's talking about, my hat is off to him.
So what happened during his first term? What did he do?
I don't know that he was even aware of it, but his Department of Homeland Security, just like Joe Biden's Department of Homeland Security, pressured Facebook and Google and the others to suppress speech that they hated and to use their algorithms to advance speech that they wanted. This was challenged in the Supreme Court of the United States, and the court said, no, again, inexplicably, no violation of the First Amendment. Well, whenever the government puts its thumb on the scale of speech, whenever it encourages or discourages speech, whenever it evaluates the content of speech, it violates the First Amendment.
And that's all they do. Your article goes on here as detailing how the government, the founding fathers, the phrase "no law" in the First Amendment literally means no law. And you're talking about the Ellsberg trial, when Justice Douglas asked government lawyer if the phrase no law in the First Amendment literally means no law, he was unable to answer. The court found his mumbo-jumbo reasoning so telling that it actually published a transcript in the Q&A in the court's opinion itself, something it had not done before in modern times nor since.
Because they can't answer the question of whether no law means no law. If no law means no law, then every effort by the government to interfere with speech is unconstitutional. If no law doesn't really mean no law, well, then what the hell does it mean? It means whatever the justices want it to mean at any given moment.
And that's what you say here. Regrettably, today, no law means whatever the court says it means. That's what happened last week when the court upheld congressional legislation silencing TikTok. And you go on to say that yet, rather than analyzing the legislation based on that, the court, mouthing similar mumbo-jumbo as a Department of Justice lawyer in the Pentagon Papers case, ruled that if Congress decides that some commonly used instrument is detrimental to national security, then the court will not second-guess Congress, even if this has the ancillary effect of abridging upon the freedom of speech. It's an outrage.
I did put a line in there just for you, in which I said, free speech is vital to our humanity as we pursue happiness. Remember that?
Yep.
The pursuit of happiness is one of your favorite lines.
And here's the cover of this week's Trends Journal.
Wow.
It's about the human spirit.
Correct.
And that's been taken away from us.
Correct.
I got to listen to the crap spewing out of a politician's mouth. Congress says, a bunch of bored-off clowns. Congress says, you don't have no right to say. And again, look what's going on. If you're not a billionaire, shut your mouth. You can't talk. You only can talk if you're a billionaire or donate millions of dollars. What's this country turning into? You know, Trump, by the way, you know, in his speech, another thing that I got to tell you, I found a bit concerned about. This is building up the military-industrial complex. He said, like in 2017, we will again build the strongest military, you ready for this? The world has ever seen. We will measure our success not only by the battles we win, but also by the wars that we end. And perhaps, which is a good point, most importantly, the wars we never get into. But let's go into the first one. The battles we win.
Well, that's dangerous. There's no reason for us to be in any battles, even though, you know, we're fighting every day in Syria. We have people on the ground in Ukraine. He should bring every American home from Ukraine in a heartbeat, but he hasn't done that. The pipeline that Joe Biden opened up, that spigot, is still producing ammunition and military gear to Ukraine. He hasn't stopped that.
And how about what's going on now with the ceasefire? They're attacking South Lebanon again, the Israelis. Look what they just did in the West Bank on yesterday. They killed about over 10 people, wounded about 50. And Biden had done something for these so-called settlers. I forgot exactly what it was, condemning them for what they were doing. And Trump pulled that off. He said, no, we're going to do away with that, what Biden did in condemning them. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Biden would not recognize the settlers these are right-wing Zionists, Israelis, moving into the West Bank, stealing land and building homes. Trump recognizes those homes and villages as part of Israel. Biden refused to do that. It's a theft of land. In some cases, it's the theft of life, because they're killing the people whose land it was before they actually take the land. Every one of our people, Colonel McGregor, Scott Ritter, John Mearsheimer, Jeffrey Sachs, Phil Giraldi, that I ask Ambassador Charles Freeman, is this a ceasefire or an inauguration pause? Do you expect Bibi to comply with the terms? And they all say it's not a ceasefire, it's a temporary pause, and Bibi cannot stay in office if he complies with the terms. So of course he's not going to comply with the terms.
And now there are also bombs away over Syria. They just killed more people in Syria today. They're in control of over 30% of the water in Syria, and they're stealing more land in Syria. And so I agree. The ceasefire is just it's a little bit of nothing. This is a photo from Monday's New York Times. Can you see that?
Yes.
Shows the devastation of Gaza. And this is the headline: Relief, Joy, and Uncertainty as Gaza truce begins. Look at this thing. Totally destroyed, bombed to ruins. Bombed to ruins. And this is how come they hadn't been putting this picture up day after day for over 500 days?
Wow.
One lousy picture. How come they weren't showing this day after day after day of the genocide being committed by?
You know the answer to that. Why are the human beings released by Hamas called hostages and the human beings released by Israel called prisoners? Because the Zionists control the dialogue. I have to run onto the set. I don't know what happened. Trump said something, and they want me in the studio right now. So
Judge, thanks for being on.
Apologize for
Appreciate it, and we'll see you next week.
You got it. All the best, Gerald. Thank you. Bye-bye.